Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Brittany and I'm so excited to be talking to you because it means that we have come back from another adventure. This trip was particularly exciting for me because it gave me the opportunity to see the Asian continent for the first time, and our destination was India. So far in my life, I have traveled a lot around Europe and just recently have started getting more into traveling the Western United States. So this trip was a real adventure for us. This was definitely a place as well that I've been looking forward to seeing for a very, very long time. Another really awesome part of this trip was it was the first time that I was traveling together with both my dad and my husband in the same trip. So that was a really nice thing to be able to get to experience together. And the trip was filled with so many adventures, and we'll kind of get into that a bit later. But for now, let me take you guys along on our trip to India. Let's go. After a long day of traveling and also an extra day spent in London, we finally landed in Mumbai. Because we arrived in the evening, we got settled into our Airbnb, and the first thing that we did was go out to eat at this restaurant that had a gorgeous view of the city. This restaurant was called Koila, and it was our first experience with Indian cuisine. I decided to go for a subs biryani, which was basically a vegetable rice mixture that was absolutely delicious. June is monsoon season in Mumbai, so there was a lot of rain, and this restaurant was obviously prepared with these plastic covered little gazebo type things for us to eat in. Next morning, we woke up bright and early to tour the city of Mumbai. Typically, when we travel, we like to check things out on our own and be very independent, but I am glad that we decided to opt for some tours on this trip because we were able to see a lot more than I think we could have seen on our own. One of the first things we were able to see was the Taj Mahal Palace Hotel, as well as the gateway to India. One of our next stops was the Kala Ghoda area of Mumbai. Kala Ghoda translates to Black Horse. Originally, while the British were occupying Mumbai, there was a statue in this area of the city that featured a soldier atop a black horse. Because it was so known as Kala Ghoda, even after they took the statue down, the people who lived in Mumbai continued to call the area Kala Ghoda. So they decided to erect a statue of just a black horse instead. The British occupation was also apparent in this clock tower, which was built to mimic Big Ben. Our next stop was this sacred Hindu water tank. Instead of going to the river Ganges to spread ashes of loved ones, many people who aren't able to make that trek will put ashes in this tank in order to honor their loved ones. Our next stop was the Hanging Gardens of Mumbai. The gardens got that name because they're actually atop a large water holding tank that is used for the citizens of Mumbai. After looking at the Hanging Gardens, we went somewhere very special, which was the Mani Bhavan Gandhi Museum. They work very hard here to tell the story of Gandhi's life, and it was also a place where he lived and worked for 17 years. Another unique thing that we saw in Mumbai was the largest open-air laundry area in the world. Our last day in Mumbai, we went to what used to be known as the Prince of Wales Museum, which housed a lot of beautiful ancient art, as well as some really cute Indian palm squirrels. From Mumbai, we took a plane to our next destination, which was Delhi. The first stop on our tour of Delhi was the Friday Mosque. Our guide was actually able to get us in before it truly opened, so we were able to experience everything in the morning when it was still nice and quiet. While in Old Delhi, we took a tuk-tuk ride through the streets and saw some of the old spice markets. This was probably one of the most exciting parts of our trip, and our guide said that it was better than any ride that we could find in Disneyland. After that adventure, we went to the Gandhi Memorial. This is where he was cremated after being assassinated, and a flame has burned in that place ever since. One of the most interesting buildings that we saw on our trip was the Lotus Temple. This is a place for followers of the Baha'i religion. Our guide explained to us that the Baha'i religion is an attempt to pull different pieces from a number of different religions and have one place where people can come together. One of the last sites that we saw in Delhi was Humayun's tomb. Our guide explained to us that this place was very special not only because of its gorgeous architecture, but because it's one of the largest buildings in the world that was built by a woman for her husband. Finally, we ended our day in Delhi at this very unique underground stepwell. From Delhi, we began our Golden Triangle tour, which took us to Agra. Our first stop in Agra was the Baby Taj. Our guide explained that the same methods of inlaying semi-precious stones into marble was used here as was used on the Taj Mahal. That night, we were also lucky enough to get a sneak peek of the Taj Mahal from across the river. While in Agra, we stayed at the JP Palace, which was an incredible experience. We were treated like royalty, it was gorgeous, and we even had a little bit of a furry friend situation. The next morning, we got to the Taj Mahal around 5 o'clock to see the sunrise. We did see some monkeys at other points of our trip, but while we were waiting for tickets, we saw this group of monkeys, which was probably the largest amount we saw while we were there.
Purchase your tracks today.
I'm so glad that we got to see the Taj Mahal when we did, because seeing this beautiful sunrise backdrop and having a lot less tourists around was definitely an experience that I'm going to remember for a long time. Our next stop that day was the Agra Fort. This fort was actually the main residence of emperors until the capital of India was shifted from Agra to Delhi. It's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Our final stop in India was Jaipur, which is also known as the Pink City. One of the first things we saw was this Wind Palace, which was actually a facade used for royal women to get to see things happening on the streets. Our next stop was the Amber Fort. It's actually up on a hill, so we were lucky enough to get to ride an elephant to the top. This wound up being one of the most memorable experiences while we were there. As you can see, we had a wonderful time on our trip. We got to see so many gorgeous monuments and taste delicious food and meet really nice people. But unfortunately, our trip was actually cut a bit short because my father was experiencing some medical issues while we were there that we felt we needed to return to the United States for as quickly as possible. Those last few days would have actually been spent at a tiger reserve, which I was very excited for, but it was definitely the right decision to come home, and I don't regret it for one second. Now my dad is out of the hospital and feeling much better, so everything feels good now that we're back home, and I'm really glad to be talking about and sharing the adventure that we did have while we were there. Thank you guys so much for watching today. I hope that you enjoyed, and I hope it sparked some interest to travel to these places and maybe give you some ideas if you do get there. But for now, until I see you next time, don't forget to enjoy the journey. Bye.